Okay, we're live. So the internet, well, at least they're seeing me and then seeing Tom, and I guess EBTV is taping the two of us. So Melissa called me here to say, hey, can we do a talk on security and privacy? And with Facebook, and everyone's here for Cambridge Analytica and what's going on with everything. So I said, yeah, sure. I'm sure everyone's going to be a hot button. Everyone's going to be here and everyone's going to want, and we're going to have standing room only and everything else. But for the people on the internet, there's only 3 of us, which goes into the most awesome topic. And it's most ironic that nobody really cares about security and privacy. We all say we do, but in reality, what is it? It's if I can get something for free, all I have to do is give my address or my name or some sort of identifiable information, it's okay because no one's really going to steal it from me because there's no bad people on the internet. So I brought a person much smarter than me and Tom can explain.
Oh, don't put that on me. Don't put that on me.
So Tom is a friend of mine. We met a long time ago at Google I/O in 2012, and Tom does InfoSec for a very large company. So
yeah, the company I work for is not a secret. I just don't like to advertise, and I do not speak on behalf of this company.
So
just putting that out there. I have to throw out my disclaimer.
So anyway, so I guess the first thing is what happened. And let's start talking about what happened. So Cambridge Analytica is a data mining company. There's lots of them. They are not the only one. This is not the first time this is going to happen. This is not the last time this is going to happen. So what they did though is questionable. So they hired a professor, or a professor made an app called This Is My Digital Life. And that app asked a whole bunch of Facebook people survey questions. And it was opt-in. So you got a message saying, hey, would you like to opt into this survey? And they asked all these questions. And one of the things that happened was at that time at Facebook, if you accepted an app, that app became your friend. And what that meant is that they basically could act in any way your friend on Facebook would act. So they can see your likes, your posts, your friends. It only went 1 degree, but they could see it all. So this professor didn't really do anything. However, a couple of years later, which was in 2016, Cambridge Analytica contacted this professor and said, hey, can we use your app or can we buy you or whatever else? And what they did is started scraping Facebook for all that data. So only 87,000.
Yeah, it's 87 now.
87,000 people.
The number keeps growing.
But those friends of friends of friends basically affected 50 million people, which is not an insignificant amount. And if you were on Facebook the last few weeks, you got a message that said, hey, by the way, you didn't do it, but one of your friends did it. So by the way, your data is now taken with them, right?
Yeah. So the way I'm trying to figure out how to, basic to boil this down. A lot of popular websites have these things called APIs. Basically, it's a structured way for developers and people that make websites and apps to communicate to other developers. Hey, here's how you interact with our platform. Here's how you can get data in and out of Facebook. It's used for tons of things. If you've ever seen a sign in with Facebook button, that's part of Facebook's API. The way their API used to work, and it has changed now, is that when you got access to a person, you got access to their circle of friends as well, and some of their data. Not all of it, but a decent amount. So with Cambridge Analytica, if they hit, a small circle of people directly, all of those people's friends were now caught in this giant dragnet.
So anytime you got invites for Candy Crush or Farmville or whatever else, Farmville and Zynga were basically potentially had access to your data, and nobody really cared because you got to play Farmville. And okay, and the other good part of this was, hey, you could log into different websites, because at that point, Facebook was now was able to identify you. And now this is a good thing I'm about to say. So you went to some no-name website and it said log in with your Facebook account. That no-name website was able to identify you, but without getting any of your information. They only got they only got your name or some other little thing. So if they suffered a privacy breach, they couldn't, you weren't on the hook. If Facebook suffered a privacy breach, then it would be a problem. But at that point, we said, Facebook, if Facebook has a privacy breach, we have way bigger problems than this little no-name website suffering from it. Now, again, this wasn't a privacy breach. This was, we gave them the data. And how did we give them the data? We agreed to it. We said in those terms of service that, hey, Facebook, when you do this, Facebook is going to get your data. And we didn't know how prevalent or how much data they were going to get. That's really the problem. We say, oh, yes, some computer can scrape all this data. We can go to every single friend. And we start doing it ourselves. But you know what? We get to the third friend, and then we say, you know what? I'm tired of this. The problem is computers don't get tired. They can just suck up all this information and then do whatever they want with it. And they can compile social graphs with you and everything else, which unless Tom has anything to add, I'm going to get into advertisements.
Yeah, that's fine. The only thing I could add here is that, while it may seem pretty innocent that, let's say a health insurance company buys all this data from a data broker, which, by the way, I don't know of any health insurance companies that are doing that currently, but data brokers do sell this type of information to virtually anyone. If somebody sees that you liked a page called, I hate running or I hate exercise, and you liked Dunkin' Donuts and pizza, right? Let's say a health insurance company gets that information. You personally might be paying slightly higher premiums because you did like the pizza pages and you did like Dunkin' Donuts, and those are great. I like those too, but that information can be used against you in weird, surprising ways.
So again, that leads us into more advertising. And what happens is exactly as Tom said, as you like things, Facebook is targeting ads for you. Because again, what is Facebook? They're trying to make money. So they're trying to connect the world socially and all that other stuff that Mark Zuckerberg said the other day. But at the end of the day, they have fiduciary duty to their investors to make them money. How are they going to make money? Well, they're going to serve ads against you. And you just don't want any type of ads. You want ads that are relevant to you. Mark Zuckerberg said this the other day. People hate ads. People really hate non-relevant ads. So if you have to see an ad, do you want to see something that's completely non-relatable to you? Or do you want to see ads that are at least somewhat related? And I think for most people, when they think about it, they want to see ads that relate to them in some way. Now, the problem is they're not that good yet. They're going to get better. Like I was just looking at security cameras, and now all of a sudden that's all the ads I get, like just all the time. And so the problem is I already bought it. So now I'm getting ads for something I already bought, and specifically that product. Like, yes, I get it. Show me something else. Show me an accessory. Show me this. Show me how I can use it. And now they know what I bought. And you say, well, how does Facebook know that? Well, they're putting their claws everywhere. Anytime you see a like button on a certain website, anytime you see share this, that website is running tracking software that's tracking where you're going. And don't think that Facebook's the only one. They all do it. Google does this. Twitter does this. They all do it. I don't know. Does Apple do this? I think Apple does it, or they claim they don't.
I honestly do not know. It would be surprising to me if they did, because I don't believe they've got their hands into advertising aside from iAds, which I think was a flop.
So yeah, if you don't remember, iAds was Apple's way of marketing. You buy this ad, and they knew exactly, because they had all the iPhone data to target. But for the most part, it was a big flop. But now Google is getting into trying to figure out your credit card purchases. If they can now figure out that you look at something and then you don't buy it online, but you go to Target and buy it, now they know even more. And where did this start? This started with the Price Plus card. And I don't want to single out ShopRite. I want to when you have your Publix or your Kroger's or your Wegmans, all the food cards, they were giving you 10 cents. But what were they getting from that? They were getting what you were buying. And if you don't think that they were absolutely using that for their benefit, to know that what to put on that middle shelf there and how to separate the other things. So this started way back when, and it's more prevalent now because you're on the internet, and everywhere you go, when you see a Google topic, Google ad, you see something that sort of relates to something you searched, or it's one of those weird things. You were talking about this yesterday, and magically The phone was listening to you, which is not a thing.
It's not a thing. It's not a thing. People claim it's a thing. It's not a thing. Facebook does not hot mic your phone. I've looked at the data. I've seen what the devices are doing. Facebook does not use your microphone to listen into you. Guaranteed.
But if you want to be a conspiracy theorist, we might as well tell you to do this. Pick a random topic. Have someone, like, send them a letter saying, write me a letter of some random topic you want me and my friends to talk about. And at lunch, without saying a word, you pass around a piece of paper with this random topic, like aluminum siding, and just talk about that for half an hour. The next day, somebody will get it, and they're going to say, yes, somebody's hot micing everything. That's not actually true. That doesn't actually happen. It's just really scary. It's some psychological thing that they saw you going and everything else that came back with it. So people want to think that that happens. That doesn't actually happen. And people say, well, but how did they know I was going to buy a car? How did they know this? I don't know. Somebody must have been talking about it. Someone on your internet, someone at the ISP level, somebody was trying to figure this out.
Even beyond that, so let's say, like, all of my friends, I'm super into superhero movies right now. All of my friends went to see Black Panther. I was the guy, like, totally late to everything, so I hadn't gone to see it yet. And all of a sudden, like a week before I went to see it, I'm seeing all of these ads for other people seeing Black Panther, and of course, I'm getting ads about this movie because my friends on Twitter are seeing it, right? The people that I contact through Google have seen it, and they're tweeting about it. They have Facebook pages, they've got blogs, they've got all this other stuff where they're talking about seeing this movie, and they go, we don't think Tom's seen it yet because we have all of his GPS data and he hasn't been to a movie theater recently. So clearly he hasn't seen the movie. Let's throw some ads his way. And then all of a sudden I'm getting ads for every movie ticket selling site around.
So they're getting this data, and that's what Congress was asking. And unfortunately, Facebook doesn't have a reason to stop doing this. What they have to worry about is making money. That is their job, and I don't understand why the Republicans in Congress didn't really understand that. That's their job, and the Democrats in Congress are saying don't do it, but at the end of the day, it was watching a train wreck because Mark Zuckerberg is probably was telling them things, and the Congress people were just, I don't understand. Why are you doing this? I thought you're showing me pictures of my grandkids, and the answer is no. We're taking those pictures, and now we know that this is related to you, and we're going to use that not against you, but to tailor ads. Hey, you have a baby, maybe you want these diapers, or your child is 3-year-old. Maybe we're going to start showing toys for 5-year-olds, and then you start looking, and you may actually buy one. So
let's be clear. Like when Facebook looks at your photos to target ads to you, and by the way, they do. It's not a bunch of people in cubicles sitting through and manually going through your pictures, going like, oh, they've got a baby. I see like a couple TV show box sets of DVDs, on the shelf there. We should target these ads. Machine learning and image recognition has come a long way. It's actually really, really good right now. Computers can tell activities. They can tell, people. They can cross-reference faces from different angles. They can see, okay, this person posted this thing, which is similar to these people, what they post. Let's go ahead and cross-reference the activities in these photos. Make sure that, these people are in the same photos or at the same location as these people, which we can get from GPS data, and then try to tailor their interests to be somewhat the same because it looks like it's a group of friends. There's a lot of inferences you can make with these social graphs that, you wouldn't know if you just took a glancing look at it.
So when you talk about trust, you're asking, do you trust Facebook? Do you trust Google, Apple, Microsoft, all these companies? And the problem is that, or the good thing is that they are using machine learning, and they're not actually looking at the data. There's not one person sitting there. So you have to say, these ads that they're giving me, are they more beneficial? So let's say we're going to talk about next. What happens if I delete my Facebook or delete my Google account or whatever? What am I going to lose out on? And you go back to the idea that Facebook is not trying to ruin your life. They're trying to make money. And if somebody's willing to pay them to make money, they're going to take that money. I've always said this. Facebook is not giving the government your information because the government is not paying. I mean, and that's really it. They will fight. Facebook will fight for your privacy when it comes to the government for the most part, unless the government pays them. And how did they pay them? Well, they didn't really pay them. They paid a different company to access data, not necessarily of you, but your likes and everything else. So they didn't get you. They got everything you liked without your name type thing.
Yeah, and we've seen in the past, even with anonymized data, with enough of it, you can pinpoint a person. There was I think it was AOL way back in the day. This is probably over 10 years ago at this point. There was a leak of anonymized search data. So, search queries completely anonymized, but in a list. From a list of search queries, they could actually narrow down one person in her house, and journalists went to her house with a list of her AOL search queries and said, "Ma'am, were you searching for this online?" And she said, "Oh my God, how did you get this?" It was a really big deal back in the day. But anonymizing data and stripping your name and anything like super personally identifiable about you, it doesn't really help, right? It can still be tied back to you.
So let's go into so everyone's talking about delete Facebook. So what happens when you delete Facebook? So first off, you can't delete Facebook immediately. You can deactivate Facebook. And what that means is, hey, we think you're making a mistake. So we're going to keep everything for 2 weeks. It's either 2 weeks or a month. And if you do anything Facebook related in that time period, it will reactivate. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, if you like something on a website, or you go to, it's usually one of those, you went to this website, it said continue with Facebook, and now you don't have an account on that website. Now you have to click continue with Facebook, and now you're back on. So that's the first thing that Facebook does to make it really hard. Second, I think they start emailing your friends at some point. If this person's not on Facebook, do you know where they went? So they try to use this peer pressure to get you back. I think they've stopped that. I'm not 100% sure. But
they do a bunch of kind of annoying, cringeworthy things. Like when you're going to finally delete your account, it'll show you, pictures of all your friends and pictures you've taken. It says, do you want to forget all these good times? Are you sure you want to lose contact with all of these people? It's like, Facebook, you don't get it. I can just call my grandmother. I don't need Facebook to interact with her. But for some people, some relationships, some friendships, Facebook's the only way, the only tie you have to them. And yeah, that tactic does work. There's a reason why that page still exists.
So let's say you do deactivate. The problem is now getting your friends to also join you, because again, the idea is that nobody really cares, because I can either call my grandmother or I can see her on Facebook. And it's so much easier just to see her on Facebook than to take the picture of the kids and text message it to her or email it to her, or having to explain to her how to open up her email and download the picture and how to see it and where it went on the computer and everything else. Or you can post it on Facebook and say, here you go. So now you have to weigh this really difficult decision on what you want to do. Do you want to be the righteously indignant and say, yes, I'm right? Or do you want to be, or do you want to accept the fact that you're going to be not shunned on purpose by your friends, but they're going to continue their lives on Facebook and you're not? So the greatest example I have of this, and Tom and I have talked about this, is that text messaging is terrible in every single way. There's no redeeming quality of text message. There's so many better ways now: iMessage, Facebook Messenger, Signal, WhatsApp, and they're all encrypted at some level. And it's just, you can send pictures, you can send everything, and it works. But nobody wants to get off text message. These 160 characters they're beholden to. But when you show somebody else, hey, you can use WhatsApp on your computer. You can use Facebook Messenger on your computer. It can be encrypted. You can send location data. You can send photos. And you can do it on your computer versus on your phone. And people say, you know what? I don't want to do it. They're like, well, why not? And the answer is because I have SMS built in. It's the same idea. So if there is some new social network, and you said, you know what, they're not going to share your data, we're going to go there, the answer is, nah, I'm going to stay here.
And there are lots of alternatives. I think there was one called Hello for a while. MySpace is a thing again, apparently. Nobody's on it, but it's a thing. I know a bunch of people have moved to Snapchat. There's the open source kind of privacy focused one. There's Diaspora, which is kind of like a Facebook clone. Try it if you want. It's not good at all. I donated some money to them to get them started, and it just didn't pan out, unfortunately. But that happens with projects. There's Mastodon, which is kind of like a Twitter clone, which is fairly interesting. But there are alternatives to Facebook. The thing me and my friends did when we all hopped off of it is we started a Hangouts group chat that's been going for a very long time, since the birth of Hangouts. Basically, since Google killed off Google Talk, that's when we all jumped onto a Hangouts group message, and that's how we stay in contact.
And the problem is that people with iPhones do not want to leave iMessage. And iMessage is both a different messaging platform and text message. So that's where that blue and green bubble stuff came from. If you're on an iPhone, you're a blue bubble. If you're not an iPhone, you're a green bubble, and you're discriminated against. And Tom and I both have Android phones. So I think what happens is that a green bubble gets the message individually, and it sends back individually and not to the group. So it gets this second-class citizen status, and they say, well, if you're going to be there, we really don't want you in our group because it just screws everything up. But you see Apple every time with the new operating system upgrade touting iMessage and how awesome it is. So Apple is moving people covertly off of text message for their iMessage. And yeah, you can do things like that. The problem is that you need a critical mass of people. So all the teenagers, I don't know, right? Anybody under 18 is now using Snapchat. They have a Facebook because their parents are on it, but they're using Snapchat. I think that's going to be the generation after them is going to be the one that's going to, I don't want to speculate here, is going to like really get off of Facebook. But I have a feeling that Facebook is still going to be dominant for many years to come, but they're going to start moving off, and they're going to use Facebook as their one platform when they have to reach a certain group of people.
Yeah, for younger people, it's almost like Facebook has reached LinkedIn status. Like, you've got one, you don't really want it, you don't really use it, but you feel like you have to have one. So that's kind of where it sits. Just to approach a common question, and I've been asked this a lot. We actually got this question a week ago in our WhatsApp group. If you want to ask security questions, privacy questions, ask us. We'll add you to the group. It's really cool. But the question was, am I being more private by using Facebook on a browser on my computer or by using the mobile app? And the answer is using a browser is going to almost always be safer than using the mobile app, mostly because Facebook builds in a lot of their location tracking stuff directly into the app, right? It'll say, hey, Facebook wants to use your location. Facebook wants to, use your camera, your microphone. It'll ask for all these permissions. Location being the big one, right? The browser, it's very explicit about popping up the thing saying, hey, do you really want to let this website know your GPS coordinates? Are you absolutely sure? The app on older versions of Android, it'll just get those permissions just naturally when you install it. Newer versions of Android tend to fix that. They've got the dynamic pop-up like iOS has. But if you're looking to be a little more private and stay on Facebook, use it in a browser.
So let's go talk about what can you do. Okay, so if you want to delete Facebook, go for it. I mean, nobody's going to stop you. It's the world will not end, I promise. But so the first thing to do is what I've done. And by the way, Facebook already has the data, so you have to make your decision on do you care that they already have your data or not. Start by what I do is I would remove all the likes. I generally don't like things unless it's a friend of mine wants me to like their personal page for whatever reason. I'll do it for a few weeks and then take it off. Basically, make it a shell. Make it, what do you want it to be? You want a picture of yourself so people can find you, a name. I guess you want to put your gender in there. And then from there, post whatever you feel like, if you don't mind the world seeing what you would want. Like, I wouldn't be partisan. I would just talk about the weather, talk about sports, and keep it there, because you do want that place to share photos if you really have to. And then the thing is, I have 2 young kids. I rarely share their photo on Facebook. If people want to see photos, I ask them for, we'll talk about WhatsApp in a second, for WhatsApp, and I send it through there, or I send it through a text message. Because again, Facebook will get that. Now, I do post photos of the kids, but then after a few months, I try to take them down. Now, does Facebook really delete the photos? They claim that they do, but for the most part, they probably have them somewhere. Snapchat is famous for saying they delete it, but not really. And again, make it a shell. If you want after, I can show you how to remove the apps, but Facebook has a part where it says what apps are you signed into. So you can go there every 6 months and delete those. So it'll remove that link between you and Farmville, or you and Pinterest, or you and whatever. And then and you can just remove all the cruft, all the dead websites that no longer exist. And basically, you're trying to give Facebook as little information as possible, and you still want to run your life through there.
The best advice I've given about people who want to use Facebook, or really any social media for that matter, is that at the flip of a switch or at a failed deployment, an engineer at Facebook can make all of your private data public, and that's happened before. It hasn't been on purpose; it's been on accident, but it has happened. So if you're going to use Facebook, the best way to approach your profile and what you put on there is think of it like a public persona, right? Think of it like you're a famous person and everything you post into this platform is broadcast to the entire world where anyone can find this data. If you want something to be private, don't put it on Facebook. If you want something to be really private, don't put it on the internet. It's kind of an annoying way to operate because you have to start thinking adversarially about Facebook and what you want to keep hidden, but it really is the most foolproof method to keep things private, right? Are there messages or conversations that would be embarrassing to you if they leaked out from your Facebook messages? Well, don't put those on there, right? Find something else. Find an encrypted messaging platform, perhaps like Signal or WhatsApp. And we'll go into WhatsApp being connected to Facebook and why that's not such a problem here in a bit. But that's generally my advice when it comes to Facebook.
So it's go there. Same thing with Twitter. By the way, Twitter has the same thing. Google has the same thing. Google has a dashboard through when you go into your My account there, it shows you things, and I can show you that after. But exactly what Tom said. What do you want to be for everyone to see? Same thing with Twitter, and Twitter is more public. Same thing with any of these social media platforms. Yes, you can hide it to your groups, but if you really want to be, how private do you want to be? If you want to just talk to your 5 really close friends, find a different way to do it. Here's the other thing. Don't have that many friends because, again, I didn't click on that. This is my digital life. My friends did, because if they clicked on it, they were going to get an extra life in Farmville, something like that. So if you're not talking to somebody, maybe, you know what, defriend them. Like, where did you meet this person? Oh, you met them at that party one day many years ago. Maybe unfriend them. If you don't know who this person is because she got married and changed her last name and you didn't know about it for a couple of years, maybe you're not as close as you think you are. And it's hard to say, but you really don't need 1,000 friends if 900 of them you're really not going to talk to. You can always refriend them later. You can always go through your high school yearbook, as I say, and friend them later. So there's there. If you want to share pictures, and Tom and I both don't have an Instagram, but apparently I hear that's the thing.
It's the thing. It's really just for pictures of food, though. If you're taking pictures of food, they go on Instagram, from what I understand.
So for Instagram, yes, you can show things, and yes, Facebook does own Instagram, and they are siloed, but they're not they're sharing some data, like they're saying, oh, this is the Facebook account with Instagram. But if you keep them separate, they do, for the most part, stay separate. But again, you're just sharing photos. So you're not sharing your political views unless you take photos of political signs and things like that. I don't have anything else to say about Instagram other than
that. When I used to have a Facebook account in my later years in college, I'd play Friend Roulette. They had like a thing that would randomly show you 6 friends on the sidebar, and I'd hit refresh and pick one of those friends to unfriend. It was a great time. So if you're ever bored, play Friend Roulette.
And then I want to bring up WhatsApp. So Facebook does own WhatsApp, and I want to get into messaging platforms. So WhatsApp started as a way for people in other countries other than the US to communicate with each other, because text messaging rates were astronomical. So if you remember, it was $30 a month to get unlimited text messaging on one phone, and then it was, or maybe it was $10 a month and $30 for the family plan. And you said it's 160 characters. What's going on? It shouldn't be this much money. So WhatsApp, and now if you're in a different country, sending an international text message was 50 cents. So, and it's even worse in countries like Brazil and Australia and in Europe. So
the rates were just insane, prohibitively expensive to send SMS. There were plenty of stories of people, families that went on vacation and just were texting like the usual to come home to a $10,000 phone bill.
And you would only hear some stories, but again, in Europe where it's just open, open borders with the EU there, people were just communicating all the time. It wasn't, you would be in a different country and it'd be no big deal. So WhatsApp created this messaging platform. And it wasn't the first one, but that's the one people latched onto. And Facebook bought them for some, I think, 19 or $20 billion when it was all said and done. And they got 2 billion people. So why isn't Facebook getting that data? Well, Facebook teamed up with our favorite company called Signal. And Signal created this way to message people. It's what we call it bulletproof encryption. As of right now, there is no way to get that data. Signal has some stuff, like they have your phone number, but that's it. And any of those messages, who you communicated with, that's it. They cannot, signal to signal, nobody can get. And it was proven about a year ago when the NSA sent them what we call a national security letter and said, give us data. And they basically gave anytime someone connected to the server, but that was it. They couldn't get the message. They couldn't get the topic of the conversation. They just had some phone number and that was it. And they said, we have nothing on you. And it was proof that as of right now, there's no way to communicate. And we can go into how deep that communication is, but WhatsApp called them and said, can you do that to us? And Signal said, yes, sure, we can. The only problem is, and so why do we use WhatsApp over Signal? Well, WhatsApp has a lot more, it looks much prettier and it does a few more cooler things. But WhatsApp knows what people are in your conversation. So if you're talking to your mother, they know it's you and your mother or your entire family, but they don't know the contents of it. So just don't call your group chat my diabolical plot, because that would be bad. Call it pictures of cats and then talk about your diabolical plot.
Yeah. So Facebook gets the metadata from WhatsApp conversations. They can see, the phone numbers of the people in our security group. And if those people have Facebook profiles, they know that this phone number links over here, this phone number links over here. Even if you don't have a Facebook profile, Facebook knows my number is me because of shadow profiles, where you don't have a Facebook account, but they know through browsing history, tracking, phone number association, and data gathered from other data brokers that this person, this shadow profile that's not really a Facebook account, ties directly to you. So they know the metadata of the conversations, but thanks to the Signal protocol, they have no idea what you're talking about. And they can't. The messages are actually encrypted on your device before they even touch the internet. The server that's receiving this message can't open that up. It can't decrypt it. The server's only job is to take that encrypted blob of random static noise and pass it on to whoever you sent that message to.
So, and I just want to clarify, as of right now, we don't know of any anything that's broken. Tomorrow, something may come out that we don't know of, but as of right now, there is no backdoor or no way to get in, and you can go from there. You were hearing about this in the news. The White House was using an app called Confide to do secret conversations, and then when people actually looked at it, they found out that Confide wasn't all that secret. They just said secret, and they had a lot of buzzwords like military-grade encryption and all this other stuff. They could delete messages, but it really wasn't there. So if you're trying to be secret, for whatever reason, and we don't want to say that secret is illegal. We're just saying you don't want...
Secret's not bad. Secret's not bad at all, right? Privacy is a fundamental right. There are things that people do in private that they wouldn't do in public. It doesn't mean it's bad or anything, right? I don't use the restroom with the door wide open in my house because those things happen in private, right? So just because you want to have a private or confidential or a conversation that isn't meant to be public doesn't mean that it's going to be a bad conversation or an illegal or diabolical conversation, right?
I just want my pictures of my kids to not be everywhere. I don't care that I call it pictures of my kids. I mean, I have with all the grandparents are in one group, and we just share all the pictures of the kids as we get them. And I don't really care that WhatsApp and then Facebook knows they're pictures of my kids. I just don't want them to see the pictures of my kids. I don't want them, as Tom just said, shadow profiles, to figure out who my son is before he's 13. Or, I mean, he's 4.5 right now. They probably know enough about him. Think about all those people that are sharing photos of their kids everywhere. By the time that child is 18, they're going to know everything, like literally everything about that child. Their health data. Oh, we took so-and-so to the hospital. Oh, he had an earache. They're going to know all of that if they want to find that information. So I try not to expose that information. I try to delete it when I can, and we go from there. So if I really want to be completely secret and completely off the grid type thing, I use Signal. If I want to have fun with a bunch of my friends and I just want to keep it encrypted, we use WhatsApp. So for our group, and Tom mentioned this earlier, we have a WhatsApp group because the majority of the world does use WhatsApp. And to get somebody to download WhatsApp is much easier, especially if I told you when you go to a foreign country or whatever, you don't have that text messaging charge, and you can do video calls, and you can have group messages. So we tell people, download WhatsApp. And it has a really spiffy client interface. So you don't have to install anything on your desktop. You just take a picture with your phone, and then you can type on it. And people say, how can you be a security group and use WhatsApp? And we say, okay, we got a bunch of our people in the group. We went to Signal and we tried doing it, but we didn't know who anybody was. Unless they're in your contact list, we had no idea who this random phone number was. So we're talking to random phone numbers. At least WhatsApp put their name that they chose to put there. So we say, oh, hey, we're talking to John. So now I can say, hey, John. And if I wanted to share something, it was a little easier to share and everything else. So for us, and again, the contents are still encrypted. And our WhatsApp group, we don't know who's in there because we don't ask. So they could be government contractors spying on us, but we tell everyone right up front, we don't know who's in here. We just don't tolerate spam.
Yeah. So Signal, if you want it, like the peak of privacy and encryption, like state-of-the-art, awesome messaging technology, the Signal Messenger is the one to pick. If you want something that's still using, that state-of-the-art encryption, not necessarily, it doesn't have all the privacy guarantees that Signal does, but it's got the most important piece, which is that end-to-end encryption protocol. But you want, your grandmother to be able to use it, then WhatsApp is perfect. It's user-friendly. The video and audio calls are surprisingly good. They're actually way better than Hangouts, which is pretty good by default.
So those are our two choices. If you had a choice, if you wanted to move off text messaging and go from there, those are really two choices. I want to wrap up with anything else. Is there really anything else before we wrap up?
I think just taking questions, and that's it.
Oh, I mean... No, I guess I wanted to say that it goes back to the problem that nobody really, when we talk about, we said this at the beginning, Equifax 6 months later, nobody really cares because to get rid of Facebook is just so hard. To get rid of your Google location data. Famously, MoviePass said, yeah, the reason we charge $10 a month for unlimited movies is because we know we track you from the time you open the app to the time you buy the ticket to the time you leave. We know what movie theater you're in. We know your pattern. We know when you go watch it. We can sell ads to you and make so much more money that the loss of the movie ticket that we pay accounts for that. Same with Uber. I mean, Uber did the same thing. They got caught. Now they got caught keeping the location service on hidden for a few minutes, basically a few minutes after you left your place. So they know basically where you live because they're picking you up. They know where you're going to, at what times you're going to, and everyone is using this. Now, to go completely off the grid, you have to say, well, how far do I want to take this? Who am I really hiding from? And you have to make that decision. And that decision is up to what you want to do. But to go to the extreme is an extreme. And to do that, I mean, I think now the solar companies, if you have solar panel, I think you have to have a utility account. I don't think you can go completely off the grid in New Jersey. So at least PSE&G knows who you are. Your tax records are online. So you're going to have to rent, and you're going to have to pay everything in cash, and you're not going to get any benefits. You're going to have to walk everywhere or take the bus, do all your communication at a library. How far do you really want to go? And that's always a concern. So I'll leave you with that. With that said, something from next door.
There are plenty of ways to go full tinfoil hat, but I don't think it really lines up with anyone's real risk profile, right? Nobody here is hiding from the NSA, and you know, just to throw it out there, if you are being targeted by a state actor, by a nation level, entity that wants to go after you, they will get you. There is nothing you can do to prevent that from happening, right? We like to talk about security and privacy, but the truth is, if the feds want you, they've got you.
So, I mean, with that said, I mean, that's what we have. Do we have any questions?
This is the entire presentation. But I was just talking with some teens who they were showing me how to set my iPhone to open with a fingerprint touch. And I said, whoa, but then now Apple has your fingerprints, and is this a problem? And they said, whatever, they already have all my information anyway, who cares? So they don't seem to be too concerned about privacy issues. Any thoughts, teachers?
Yeah.
That's a ringer question. We have to repeat the question. So the fingerprint, does Apple already have it and we really don't care? Is that true or not?
I think
no.
I mean, my question is, the future generations, they live their whole life online, and to them, this doesn't seem so maybe scary. Like, one girl said to me, oh, but if you're a good person, and then I gave her the example of the Experian commercial that's going around right now about the 3-year-old who had her social security number stolen and, spent a lot of money on, and like, how does that even work? So they're clueless.
So there's a couple things on fingerprints. So the way Apple does it in general, Apple doesn't have your fingerprint. Actually, the iPhone doesn't even record your fingerprint. What they record is essentially a digital representation. It's a hash of the fingerprint, which means that the thing that they stored, you can't actually recreate your fingerprints from the data that's stored on the iPhone. And I don't believe that's even sent off device. I could be wrong about that. I don't have Apple products at home. But I believe that's stored just on the phone in their encrypted secure enclave. So as far as Touch ID goes, it's a really nice system. I do want to point out, though, that fingerprints are not passwords, right? Fingerprints are usernames. Anything you touch, every time you open a door, you are leaving your username laying around, right? You don't want to treat it like a password. So, yeah, it makes the device safer to some risk profiles. But, if, let's say, you're trying to avoid, police or a judge opening your phone, they can get your fingerprints pretty easily. Anyone who's, specifically targeting you to break into your devices can get those fingerprints and can break into your device. So don't rely on it for bulletproof security, but it does represent a nice balance between convenience and security. I personally don't use fingerprint sensors, but that's just me. I'm a little tinfoil hatty.
Look, my threat model is my 1.5-year-old. My 1.5-year-old will grab my phone and try to buy everything by just pushing buttons. That's my what we call threat model.
It's a very serious threat model. Very serious.
So when my son says, I want to type on your computer, I have to unlock the phone. I unlock my computer and let him do it, because a 1.5-year-old and a 4-year-old will figure out all of this. You'd be really surprised. The other thing that the teenagers are worried about is whether their I don't want to say spouse, their ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend or their friend will see some illicit chat. I don't know, because they're jealous or whatever else. So you have that to worry about. And I think for most people, that's really it. They don't want their neighbor seeing some of their business. And so that's fine. You leave a phone on the desk. You don't want someone to say, oh, let's go start rifling through the photos. For most people, I think that's it. Tom was saying if you have a nation state trying to get at you, you have a lot more other problems to worry about. It's if you want to do that, I mean, we definitely could talk about that, but you wouldn't necessarily be on YouTube watching us.
There are way better people that you can talk to if you're trying to avoid state level actors.
So, yes.
Question kind of stemming off what she said about the teams. Like when I was in college, Facebook was a thing, and then and then it became, oh, my potential employers can find me on Facebook. I should be paying more attention to what I'm putting. Then it was like, oh, I'll create a fake name. I became a teacher. Let me hide from my students. I'll change my Facebook name to something else. Now, with all the facial recognition software, do you think that these teenagers who are doing whatever under whatever their Finsta, their fake Instagram accounts, is it not going to matter where a potential employer, maybe 8 to 10 years from now, they're trying to get a job, can just search their face? You know what I mean? And find everything that they've put. Is that like where it's headed? There
are technologies that do that already. There are several technologies that are publicly available that can do that already. So if the page or the profile is searchable or public in any way, then yes, your potential employer can find you. Now, as far as Facebook or Instagram goes, you can have 100 different profiles, all with different names, but if your face is on those profiles, they know it's you. They know it's a singular entity with multiple Facebook profiles. It's really easy for Facebook themselves to tie that stuff back together.
I think they made an actual law, at least in, I think all 50 states and maybe on a federal level, that your employer is not allowed to ask you for your credentials in any way.
Right. So if an employer ever asks you for your Facebook password or to friend them, you don't have to do that.
So, I mean, yes, we tell the students, please don't badmouth the colleges you're applying to on Facebook. If you're going to do that, just be aware that they are searching you. That's why they have those campus events or whatever else. Like our page, like this, like this. If you want to ask questions, they're basically saying, "Hey, like us," and then we'll do it. Again, I think this is more of a conspiracy theory that they're actually checking. Like, I don't think Rutgers is really checking. Right. I mean, a really small school may, and they may find something, but it's more of somebody going on some tirade and then it going viral. Did you see what this person said about this school? And it eventually gets back.
So here's something cool. I actually went with my wife today to get a Washington State driver's license. And it turns out that the licensing agency is actually using facial recognition on every single photo they take to prevent duplicates. So if you're trying to get a fake ID or a secondary ID or an ID for someone else by using your face and their information, the system will tag you and you will get found out. So facial recognition, it's cheap enough for, a driver's license agency in Washington State to pull it off. Just about everyone will be able to as well.
Anybody else? Okay.
So, like I said, when I was in college, it wasn't really a thought in my head, but do you have any like you said, going back and deleting everything off my Facebook all the way back to 2004 is just, very tedious and probably not necessary because who's really looking at my stuff anyway, but are there any tips that you would offer of like, maybe not to go erase everything, but just to scrub it clean a little bit, like some quick things that you can do to like make yourself a little more turning everything.
So someone said this. When Facebook says from your memory 7 years ago or 5 years ago, every time you get that, delete that photo. So you just do a little bit at a time because it's already out there. I mean, it's already gone. It's already out there. They have it. I mean, yes, you can go and what we said before you can just start getting rid of the likes, start going through, do a little bit at a time. Say today. So we talk on the show every 6 months, like that dead week between Christmas and New Year's is like a perfect time to do it because nothing is going on. Nobody's really working. You're sitting there and you're wishing you were on vacation. So while you're looking at other people on vacation, start doing that. Start unfriending some people that like change their names and you didn't know. Again, it's start with that mindset of what am I going to start posting now? What you posted is already there. So if you want to delete it, go through it. Like, you don't have to delete every single post, but just start being cognizant of what you're posting.
Yeah, and if you know, like, hey, back so many years ago, I was super angry about this particular incendiary political event that might not sit well with some people, or if I've posted, weird or unpopular opinions about things that an employer might not like. If you can remember any instances like that, I would polish up that profile a little bit, scrub it just a little bit, especially if you're looking for a new job or applying to schools.
And I'll leave you with, make sure there's not a tweet for everything. Anybody else? No? Okay. So I'm going to stop the broadcast, but Tom will stick on.
Yeah.